Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to our September Educause Project Management Community Group online meeting for the month. I am John Preddy, one of our two hosts for today. With me is Lisa Veloz, who is my co-host running through the session today. And we have our special guest speaker as well, who we will introduce a little bit later. So for today, we just want to give through some housekeeping information first, and that is, this is our second Zoom meeting where we're using versus the Adobe Connect that we used to use. So things are a little bit different for us. We're still learning the tools and technology and navigating through, but we just want to know much of what we have remains the same. We ask you to please mute your phone when you're not speaking. Don't place us on hold. We love music as much as the next person, but we don't want to hear it on a call with 75 or 100 plus people on here. As I mentioned, for those who were online before we started recording, we are recording today. And please feel free to use the chat box to communicate throughout the meeting. And should you have questions, we'll be taking those through chat and we'll be moderating that throughout as well. What has changed is hopefully it's a little bit more personal experience. You see my video through this portion of the meeting before I shut it down. We do have that option. We encourage folks, when you ask questions, feel free to turn your video on along with your audio so we can put names to faces and have a little bit more personal feel. Finally, we are moderating this as the Project Management Community Group, myself, Lisa, and our steering committee members working through it versus having Educause monitor and moderate the meetings that we had previously. Today's agenda. So as I mentioned, Lisa and I are hosting today's meeting. We will be giving some updates on what's going on with the PMCG. We will have a little bit of a Educause 2020 conference update for what's going on and what will be going on with our community day. And we have our keynote topic, which is the accidental project manager. For those help for us as project managers, learning a little bit more and helping provide some information for those who are sort of thrust into a project management role. So we have Carol Kiliany with us from the Cal State University system, who will be presenting that. And then if we have time at the end, we'll have some open discussion topics like we like to have to give you a chance to ask anything of your peers during the live session, and finally a closing for the meeting. So I am going to turn the meeting over to Ed Puckett, who is going to talk to you a little bit about the changes we've been making to the website and our videos, etc. Ed, it's all yours.
Thank you, and good morning, everyone, or good afternoon, depending on what time zone you reside in. Quick show here of the Project Management Community Group Wiki. I'm going to share my screen here real quick, which will take over John's share. Alrighty, and I am a swimmer at heart, so before we dive into the deep end, we will start in the wading pool right now. So I'm starting here at the Educause site because that's an easy URL to remember. It's, for those of you where this might be your first time, that's simply educause.edu. You can hop over to the community section, hit community groups, and then scroll down here. And if you search by project management, or let's just say project, we should be one of the few groups that pops up. So this is us. Normally I would click here, but I have the wiki, I have the wiki already loaded on the back burner here. So this is our wiki. We are taking efforts to streamline the layout and the content structure of the page, if you will. So what we're looking at here is the 2020 community group webinars. And as we have content, we will link those. As a meeting comes up, we will activate this link, and that can be a place for people to go to and register. And then slowly organizing, or should I say reorganizing the archives a bit, we're creating sections by year. It's quite a bit of work to do, because one thing the project management community group does well, that's a mouthful, is we archive a lot of information. So to go through there and to streamline all that and kind of pare down our content, it's going to be quite a bit of work, but we're chipping away at it once a week as time permits. So that is the meetings. Let's see here if we can hit August. I did my job, right? So this would be the typical template. I am showing, fully disclosing that I still need to access, link the recording as well as the slides. But what that recording will point you to is our first ever YouTube page. So if you go to YouTube and you type in Educause Project Management Community Group, that should take you to our YouTube page, and you will already see August's recording loaded and ready to go. And we'll continue to add more videos as we continue to have more meetings. So with that, I will end with this comment. Definitely looking for help and assistance on this. As you can imagine, a website is like a garden. It always needs care and tending to. So if you're interested in helping out, want to get involved with the group, this is a great way to step in and get some simple task-based assignments until you get your feet wet with how the community group operates. So definitely a good place to step in. And with that note, I will hand it over to Lisa for conference update and specifically about Community Day, I believe.
John, are you going to reshare?
Yeah, I'm going to release the share here in a second. Trying to get back to my window. Oh, there we go.
Hi, everyone. My name is Lisa Bellows, and I'm today's co-host. I wanted to begin by talking a little about the upcoming Educause conference. Unfortunately, for those interested in attending, you just barely missed the early discount or the early bird discount. It ended yesterday. But the conference, if you haven't heard, is actually going to span over 3 weeks, and it's going to be completely virtual this year. They have quite a variety of different session types, from, on-demand sessions, breakout sessions, live sessions, quite a variety to pick from. The core dates of the conference are the 27th through the 29th. But as I said, it actually is going to last a lot longer and span over the weeks surrounding that time. But those are the primary days. The theme for the conference, as you can see, is the best thinking in higher education. So they know they have a really good set of presentations, whether they're ones you'll access asynchronously or be able to attend live presentations. The one special day that I want to call your attention to is the Community Day, which is actually on the Friday before. The Friday before the conference begins. It's 10:23. And for those of you who've attended Educause in the past, you'll know there's always a few hours or a portion of a day dedicated to the constituent groups, and you being able to attend different constituent group sessions. So the way they're going to do that this year is through this Community Day. So the many different constituent groups are going to be offering sessions, I think between 11 a.m. and 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And what you'll be able to do as someone who's registered for the conference, you can pick and choose and decide which Community Day constituent group sessions you want to go to. For us as the project management group, we're actually planning on doing something we've done over the years. It's really an introduction to the project management group. It's a chance for people who are attending the session to network with each other. We'll do a few small topics, maybe even have some breakout discussions, but it's just a chance for people who are familiar with the group, but also those new to the group to get a sense of how the group operates. What we're going to do a little differently this year, though, is we're actually going to offer that same session twice. Because the way we've understood how they're planning things is you'll be able to move between different constituent groups on that day. And so we're actually going to offer that intro sort of networking session twice. And we're also going to offer the accidental project manager, which you're kind of getting a sneak peek at today, but we're going to offer that at 2 separate times too, just to give people a sense, whether they are project managers or are new to project management. It'll give them a sense of the types of sessions we do during our monthly calls. So if you are registered for the conference or you have colleagues who are registered for the conference, we encourage you to, attend our community day, check out other constituent groups' community day offerings. It should definitely be interesting. So let me hand it back over. Oops. To hand it over to Carol for the accidental project manager.
Okay, thank you, Lisa. Let me share my screen and get started here. Well, hello, everyone. My name is Carol Kiliany. I am at the California State University. I work out of the Chancellor's Office, which is our system office for 23 campuses. And I'm going to talk to you this morning about supporting the accidental project manager. So let's start with first, who is the accidental project manager? It's likely that subject matter expert who's kind of the go-to person on a team that you know you can rely on, and everyone else can as well. Or it could be a technical person who's implementing a service that'll be responsible for the operational support going forward. It could be a technical person who understands end user requirements. This might be that technical person that's your go-to if you have a question like, what does this really mean in plain English, and can you explain it to me? It's also possibly that person that's come to you and said, hey, you know, I really like what you're doing, and I think I want to pursue a PMP, and they just want to give it a try and see how it works out for them. So why is this important to our universities? As project managers, we can't manage every university project. We simply don't have the resources. There are a lot of projects going on, and there just aren't enough project managers to go around. If you can cover all the projects at your university, drop your name in the chat because I want to work with you. There is just too much work to go around. Another reason it's important is that project managers don't want to manage every university project. You know, we all have our own skills, and we know what we can do and what we can't do. Just for example, I like to do system-wide rollouts. I like to work with campuses. I like to implement new services at the Chancellor's Office. What I don't want to do is I don't want to sit in a room for 6 or 8 months and talk about firewalls. I will be the first one when that type of project comes up. I will be the first one to say, not me. So we need to know what we can do and what we can't do. Another reason why it's important is that some projects simply don't require a PMP to do the work. Maybe they're smaller, it's a shorter time frame, or perhaps it doesn't require the complexity of a project manager or a PMP to get the work done. And most importantly, it's an opportunity to mentor our colleagues and to grow the expertise at our university. Because, you know, in the long run, it's just going to be better for us as we move forward with our projects. So what should the accidental project manager know? It's the basics. It's not giving someone the PMBOK and say, read this and understand it. It's the basics of being prepared for and knowing how to run a meeting. That's having an agenda with defined topics, along with action items. Documenting action items are critically important, as you all know. And it is putting together a summary and sending it out to your team. It's knowing your sponsors as well as your stakeholders. And of course, it's planning. Planning is that who, what, where, why, and when of a project that we know is critically important to take the time to understand the work that needs to get done. It's also getting the resource requirements that you need, doing the right work, understanding the goals and the scope of the project. It's also communicating clearly and knowing how often and what to communicate to our different groups at our university. Additionally, understanding when to close a project is important. Projects don't go on forever. We all know it's a unique service with a defined beginning and end. It's real important to know when those goals have been met and to schedule that lessons learned and to close it up. Also, knowing when to ask for help. If project management was that easy, everyone would be doing it. We all kind of need that sounding board or someone to go to when things go off the rails. So your accidental project manager should know that there's someone that they can talk with. So also critically important for that accidental project manager is to know the terminology. You know, as project managers, we have our own language. It's kind of like our secret handshake that we need to share with our university community. Some of those terms are sponsor and stakeholders. You know, that's critically important to your projects. Your sponsor is the one that holds the purse strings. You need to have a great relationship with that person. And you also need to know who your stakeholders are. Who is your community that you're working for? What is in scope and out of scope? I always think what's out of scope is more important, but you know, those are critical terms so we can all start speaking the same language. Requirements, having measurable goals. We all need to know what we're working for. Dependencies, schedule, and of course, documenting risk. So how do we support that accidental project manager? First of all, you need to be the right person to assist. You have to be helpful. You have to have that desire to grow the project management methodology at your university. You also have to have the time to mentor someone. Educause has a great mentor-mentee article that they sent out a couple of weeks back. It's more focused towards the mentee, but it's a really good article about how to assist someone learn a new skill and how to build that relationship. But you really have to be the right person. If you don't want to do this, you know, don't set out to think you're going to help someone and be a mentor if you just don't have the right personalities. You know, we're all different. We all have our own gifts. I have the gift of gab, so I tend to want to help people and move them along. Giving access to your project management system. If you use a system like Smartsheet, or ServiceNow has a system, you know, there might be licensing issues involved. You know, if you can do that, that's great because it guides someone through the process of project management and it helps them document. You may have your own toolkit. You may have a set of templates. I know I do, and I've refined them over the years, and they're just kind of my go-to. Sharing those resources is just, it's good to get someone started and to kind of just know how to fill in the blanks. And of course, if you're working with someone and you have some accidental project managers, checking in with them and that ongoing mentoring is really important. So I just wanted to provide you with a few resources here about supporting the accidental project manager. Of course, the PMI site, Project Management Institute, has some good information there, particularly if someone wants to be a PMP. As Ed just went over, we have our project management community group site and the wiki. Ed, you're doing a great job on that. You know, it's being built out and it's going to be really easy to search different topics once it's all done. And if you haven't looked at it already as a project manager, APM, the Association of Project Management, they have a blog. This is kind of like the PMI of the UK, but the blog is really interesting. It has a lot of topics, a lot of conversations that have gone in there, a lot of how-tos. If you haven't looked at it, you know, just log in and see what you can find there. But I find it interesting. And if I have a random question about either a product or what to do or how should I approach something, I've looked in there a couple times and have found some good answers. So Lisa and John, that is the end.
You do have one question in the chat, Carol, which some of us
Sure.
have popped in to answer, but if we wanted to have a little discussion on that area, um, sorry, I just lost it. Someone said, as someone who is not a PM, what I continue to struggle with is trying to take notes and generally document the outcome action items of a meeting while also running the meeting. Any tips? And that's for Jonathan, where Andrew shared that rotate note-taking to others is sometimes a tip. I don't know if you have any tips. Heather has also posted a tip.
It's a skill set. It's something, it's learned. I am able to talk and type at the same time. I really refined that when I began to use an agenda with set topics. So it was more like when I came into a meeting, I had the fill in the blank. I don't know what to say. I do it, but I've been doing this a while, and it's just something that I've learned to do. But I highly recommend it if you can pull it off. We all write differently, so sometimes when you rotate it, some people will write like a ton of notes, and some people would just write just like basic summary notes. I think though most important is to get those notes out to your team. If nothing else, do some high-level bullets and send it out.
And this is John. One of the things for folks who saw in the chat that Heather had posted was keeping the agenda visible. And a lot of times is take your agenda and will become the minutes. And I actually just started that. I mean, I've been a project manager certified for I think 15 plus years now. And that's one of the things, just probably more so since the last 6 months of COVID time have taken on, and found it very useful, is filling in and using that file. So it's the same file that's shared, and you actually have the place where you're putting the notes is right in the agenda. So you don't feel like it's as much of a separate task. One of my other project managers who used to work for me was wonderful at doing that. She could get her notes out within minutes after the meeting. And I was the person who was lucky if it could be a couple days later. So it's really helped with doing that. And the timeliness of it, of being able to document those action items is wonderful. And with a lot more of the collaboration tools that I believe most of us have these days, helps it make it that much easier because things can be in that single location.
That's what I was going to share too. We utilize Basecamp for many of our projects. So I have, set of minutes right there in the message board and actively typing it. And then it gets published with all the action items right in it with maybe only a little, review afterwards before I hit publish, but it gets them out pretty quick. Oh, go ahead.
Sorry, that was Lisa. This was Ed. I was going to cut in, but you. One of the things I do is I think of my meeting notes as there's going to be the tendency for people to write everything down, but I like to say, all right, what are the decisions? Outline those. What are the actions? Outline those. And then what are questions left unanswered? Maybe you want to document some of the questions that were asked and answered. And then as I summarize those and send those out, nobody's a superhero. We can't capture everything. So I give myself permission to say, hey guys, here's the minutes from today's meeting. It actually is very helpful if you get it out as soon as possible, because then it'll say, let me know if I've missed or overstated anything, what I do. And people will give you the feedback and you can modify those notes and make them better. But yeah, it is a skill that you've got to practice, and you continue to get better at it.
And just to add to that, Ed, you can't have a thin skin when you send out that meeting summary. Like, be upfront, let me know if you have any changes, and also like taking notes live. That's a little unnerving. I have not acquired that skill because I don't like my spelling, and you'll get people in the group that say, oh, you spelled that wrong, or that's not right. So yeah, that's an acquired skill I haven't quite gotten yet, but I do exactly do what Ed does. I send out the meeting summary and say, let me know if you have any changes.
Does anyone else have any tips they'd like to share?
I was just going to say, this is Heather. I do take live notes, but I do tell everybody my typing is quick. My spelling,
Yeah.
if I had to spell it in a spelling bee, it'd be fine, but typing, I failed. So just don't mind the squiggly lines. You get the gist of what I'm writing. I'll go back and fix it. I just want to capture if I'm hearing everything correctly. And then I put that on them to say, is this what I heard? And is this the next action item? But always make sure that you have a due date of when people are going to get stuff done. And if they don't know, when are they going to have an idea when they'll know? So then you're listening as a PM. Everybody else is guiding the direction. So let them make that document accountable. That's it.
I think this is Jennifer. I was just going to add, I put most of my suggestions in our notes here, but I think one of the biggest misconceptions for people who are new to project management is that we're some sort of historian of all the details, of all the conversation points and everything that's happened. And that's not really the intent for those notes. Our notes are really to capture and summarize any key takeaways or anything that's really critical for the team to be successful. And so your real focus is on summarizing action items, decisions made, things that need to be followed up on. And those notes are for you to substantiate or clarify any details to make those things happen. And so a lot of times I start off right out of the gate in kickoffs with meetings with teams to say, I will take a lot of notes, but please do add, clarify, edit, do what you need to do to make sure that it's readable for you. Because at the end of the day, if you're feeling like you can't remember all those details and you may need to come back to them to follow up on the action items or the decisions or anything, then you're going to want to have some sort of record. So jump in, contribute, but you don't need to have a huge detailed list unless that's something that's helpful for you. I do find that as I get older, I do want more detail because I'm more likely to forget some things, but you know, it's not a given. It's really just whatever's going to be the degree of detail necessary for the team.
I do have to put in that it does take time to learn how to take live notes. I've been doing it for many, many years. So it's just easier for me to do than handwriting my notes. I seem to type faster than I do write. So being open with the team to let them know that you're taking the live notes makes it helpful.
And one of the areas that I've noted as well, and I think it was Heather who had touched on it a moment ago, where it said we're not here to do all the talking. We're here to listen. Is actually treating them more like stand-up meetings where we have the detailed agenda and we're going through, and I may do the recap, you know, where are we on action items, but it's doing a lot less talking than it used to do and a lot more listening, of having other people present the reports versus seeing the project manager as being one with all the information, and taking that and delivering that out to folks so that it's actually coming from the team, and it can build a lot more ownership coming that way. So those are areas that I've seen and been working just to improve internally more recently as well. So it's the less you're talking, the easier it is to be typing, because, you know, as others said, we're all, you know, getting older, so the multitasking, you know, was never that great to begin with, but it slips even more.
You know, what I liked about Carol's presentation, if we come up to 30, 50,000 feet or so, is so many, when you form or build a project office in your organization, you start picking up project requests and start managing those, and you quickly get to a level where you can't manage them all. It's just not scalable. And what I love about that presentation, it's a way to get the beginnings of a community practice across your campus or organization. So really cool template for communicating that to people outside of the project office.
Any other questions for Carol? No, So John,
That's a good question. We do have one out here that said, should you let go of projects that need a coordinator rather than really a PMP level? And how do you have that conversation? How do you, let go of things that maybe you shouldn't be working on?
I would answer that by saying, if you have a subject matter expert who can act as a coordinator, it's just, and you think that person might be interested in leading a project, you can address it as a positive, saying like, hey, you're doing a really great job. You seem to know this information. I'd like to give you the tools to lead this project. That's a good way to approach it. I just know as project managers, we can't support every project at our university, and having a toolkit available to give to people and to support them and to just mentor people along is just, it's critical for our profession and to help our own projects move better. So I like to go with you're an awesome person, let me help you be better.
another question was posted. Does anyone have specific criteria or
It was supposed to be, or thresholds for, sorry, thanks, Lisa, that was me typing. To have specific criteria or thresholds that they use to determine who, when a project needs to be managed centrally or by a full-blown PMP versus handled at a subject matter at a departmental level. I know that's one of the things we're working on right now, is revisiting these sort of complexity criteria and how to determine which ones are really the big ones, because as Carol said, we're very limited on resources.
One other question for Carol is are there any key elements in your toolkit that you can speak to?
What I always use for a project, and it's my own templates, I use an initiation overview document, which is just I try to always make it a one-page description. Well, let me start. The title, sponsor, description, scope statement, major milestones, risks, and assumptions. That's what's on my my form. A scope document, it can be you can make a scope document as detailed as or as simple as you want. A risk register, requirements doc. I have my risk register and my decisions in an Excel spreadsheet, so I have risk in one tab, decisions in another. Lessons learned is another very simple table that I use, but it's basically what you'd find in the PMBOK under planning, hitting all those elements, and of course the communication plan. Some projects, when you work with end users, you need to have a plan or a change management plan of what you're going to communicate and when you're going to communicate it and to whom. That's another critical element to a toolkit. And I'm sure other people have more, but that's, the basics that I use.
Another question, can you define how the functions of a coordinator would differ from a traditional project manager on a project?
I would say a coordinator is someone that's leading a project that is going to be smaller in scope, a shorter duration, and perhaps with not the complexity that we as PMPs would manage. I think that would be the basics, and to have that coordinator possibly have a PMP to mentor them, or just to be around to ask questions to, like, what should I do? How should I organize these tasks? Just someone who's bright, is a leader, and is well organized can be a coordinator. But it wouldn't be for a project that would maybe span over like years. A coordinator is someone that can handle something small to start with. Now, if they're working towards their PMP, you know, I think it would be good to, you know, let them branch out a little bit and do a little bit more. But, you know, again, we can't cover every project at our university. It's just not possible. But the smaller projects is what, of course, I think all of us would recommend for a coordinator.
Any other questions?
One of the things that I noticed just in our discussion here in the last 10 minutes, and I don't know how many non-project managers we have really with us in the group today, is the amount of jargon that we just is natural in our speaking as I look through. And I think that's one of the areas where we have to be ourselves mindful. As I was looking through, yeah, I just saw something as simple as a response when I had one of the things I had stated in chat or had asked about in chat was about the criteria, and the response was, 80 plus LOE requirement. I knew what that meant. I didn't have to really think twice, but then it caught me and said, LOE. People probably don't know level of effort, or just different terms that we use. So I think it's one thing, as project managers, is to help be mindful of the language we use and trying to bring things into plain English, difference between a coordinator or a project manager. What do we mean by complexity? What do we mean by, even what's risk and how do we handle risk? So I know that's one of the areas that my boss has been looking at for us right now. And why I'm interested in sort of the accidental project manager concept is we have a lot on our framework. Do these templates, fill out these deliverables, go through this process. But what we don't really have is a lot on just, hey, what's the project? What does it mean? Did you know that planning a party could be a project? Think about it, operations, maybe doing a load of laundry or doing your laundry on a weekly basis. That's very operational. It has a beginning and an end, but you do it over and over again. You kind of know what you're doing, but planning that birthday party or graduation party or something that is, really, you don't do it every day, but it has tangible benefits to it and what you're looking for, and trying to bring things into terms that people can see and understand. I think those are the next areas where we're looking to go from our institution, is to be able to focus on and help sell the concept a little bit so people can see the benefit and they can relate to it on a personal basis more so than they have up to this point, versus it just being a requirement that this group in the IT organization is putting on them.
There's a question from Heather in the chat about how much time do you allot to being a new PM or a coordinator with a project actually planning? How much time should the PM account for when helping a new PM coordinator with a project? Probably, I'm thinking you mean when you're in that mentor sort of role. It says you allow about 5% of your time for each project. I don't know if others have any tips who've played that mentor role about how much of a time commitment it was to help someone along who is playing in the coordinator role as a new coordinator.
Lisa, I don't know that I've ever thought about it in a percentage, but it's really minimal. I'm mentoring one person right now and she has one project. So that doesn't take a lot of time. That's just like a nice casual conversation a few times a week. It's not a big lift if you're truly just mentoring someone with one person. I suppose if the goal of your PMO was to build the coordinator skill across the university, that would be a different conversation. But it doesn't take a lot of time.
And you as the project manager has control over that. You know, how involved you get could lead to a lot of times depending on, you know, the project, and not everything's an exact science, but hopefully it would just be a small percentage of time.
Can I share? This is Heather. The only reason I was asking is not only to understand for the accidental PM's perspective of, oh, okay, like let's say we work a 40-hour work week, you know, 10% would be 4 hours. So if I'm asking for 2 hours a week, that seems reasonable at 5% of that PM's time. But also at the beginning of a project, you have to set things up. You kind of have to get your scope. You have to get all your blind spots, expectations, communication plan. There's a lot of ramping up a project. So it's more than 2 hours for sure in the first 2 or 3 weeks. But then as a project gets moving, you get the requirements. The team starts forming, norming, storming, getting acquainted with each other's. It's definitely closer to the 2 hours of a touch base. How are you doing with your agendas? How are you setting things up? And so I think a lot of that gets overlooked because I get asked a lot to mentor folks, and I'm thrilled to do it. I also mentor our students that have PM classes. But you do have to think through the project through the lens of if you were running it, so you can ask those questions to help give context. And so a lot of people just think that because I have like a planning template in my head besides just the documentation of how this is how it should apply for your project, but there is a learning curve to every project that you're involved with to know the players, the scope, the risks, the visibility. So that's why I feel as if it's just assumed that, oh, it's just a few hours, and it's never then given the right justification or visibility for the potential to really grow the common culture to approaching a project to your stakeholders internally and externally, and how continuously people deliver projects.
Thanks. Just want to call everyone's attention. Ed posted a link to a quick survey, seeing if you could check out in the chat and take our quick survey to see if you consider yourself an accidental project manager. Other questions, comments, things you'd like to discuss? We can hop back into the regular presentation. And actually that brings us to the portion of the meeting where we have a little bit of time still. Are there any other topics that we didn't talk about today? Anything you'd like to talk through? Feel free to open your line and
on the survey responses, they're still climbing up. We've hit 38 and look like more are coming in. So I can share that whenever we think it'd be a good time.
yeah, I think that would be fine. If someone else has some topic they'd like to discuss.
Looks like we're holding at 39 we have 73 participants in the room as of right now, and we've got 39 responses on the survey. So let me minimize a few windows so I can highlight the pie chart. See if I can share the screen.
Thanks, Ed. You can feel free to steal the sharing from me. Pull that up. Thank you. It just goes to show you can get a very good response rate when you have a very simple survey, not too many questions.
Yep. And it was just a muse hit me. So, you know, we ought to poll on that and see where our audience is. So the results speak for themselves there. We've got, and it continues to grow. It's also helping me learn more about Microsoft Forms. So it continues to refresh as we speak. We're looking at, well, of the 42 people surveyed, about half of them consider themselves an experienced project manager, and 16 would consider themselves an accidental PM, and there's 7 of them out there that are now 8 that are aspiring to be project managers. I was trying to keep up with the numbers and I almost did it.
This is fun. I actually have a question then. So Ed, thank you for sharing this. We've been talking probably from that first group of 25 before it changes on us. Is there anything from our accidental PMs, those of you that consider yourself accidental PMs, that we as experienced PMs can do differently or better to help you? We're sort of talking about what we think we should be doing, but what would be helpful to you?
You know, John, as the presenter of the Supporting the Accidental Project Manager, I didn't know my audience. I kind of just assumed that we were all like working project managers or PMPs. So I'm a little surprised. And I think this is an opportunity for us to do some more training.
Sounds good as we look into some of these, and that is, as Lisa had mentioned early on in the presentation, that the topic that we're looking at today is one of the areas that we want to introduce to folks from Educause that attend our community day, to build out and say, we are a community of practice, that what we are and what we do is we're here to help each other. So we share amongst ourselves. You do not have to be a project manager to be part of the group, except to be someone who's interested and hopefully can see the value in what we do to be able to help each other and to be able to share that information.
And I see in the chat that I think it was Amanda that wants to talk about PM templates, and possibly, Ed, maybe that's something we can put on our site. We can all share our templates. That would be super cool. I would love that.
I think that's a great idea, is to share, to be able to put some, build out a knowledge base as we talk about the sharing. So people are willing to share those links.
Definitely agree. It took me a while to respond because I couldn't find the unmute button when I shared my screen. So, but yeah, I think that's a brilliant idea.
Another idea, someone would love to learn about we all size different projects and how projects are assigned PMs or non-PMs, and someone seconded that as well.
When you combine the orange and the green groups, we're really split down the middle, which is awesome. That's when you have a community group, that's really kind of where you want to be.
So at this point of the session, I'd like to open it up for some feedback, whether it's feedback on the accidental project manager, and knowing that we're going to run that session a few more times. Is there anything that you would recommend changing about it? Or feedback on the new format of the meetings using Zoom and how things are going? Any suggestions for future topics? We just tossed out a few, but any others?
I thought you guys did a nice job on the Zoom today. I know they do offer polls as well, so that might be kind of fun to do as well in the future, just as an integration piece.
Yeah, we noticed it wasn't attached to our Zoom, and we also noticed that we wanted to use the raise the hand feature a little, and we didn't have that option. So we're going to investigate where those couple features are and if we can get a Zoom with those features.
Sure. So I was going to say, Soumya mentioned about like people that are expiring to be PMs, anything around effective meetings. I couldn't agree more. Is a lot of people that are leading initiatives, they're understanding there's documents, but they don't understand that each document is really a conversation yet, and that you want to like lead or draw out those questions. So I guess like just talking through the documentation when we're going to share the templates, that's nice, but you know, spending, you know, time to go through at least 2 or 3 documents and having like knowledge sessions might be great too.
As a suggestion for webinar topics going forward, some things that I found we have challenges on is also the forethought of what we need to record for our department that they need, and like the leadership and things like that, keeping records of the amount of work that we do for either just the project manager or like our instructional designers, and then also how best to close up or wrap up projects, and then if they're wanting to do more afterwards, like if they need to revisit something because things changed and things like that, and how best to go about doing those kinds of things.
Great, thank you. I'm getting clapping and thumbs up. Love the ideas. Anything else anybody would like to toss out there as a future topic they'd love to see us do? And of course, we are always looking for volunteers to talk on any of these topics. Some of you more experienced PMs out there, if you heard something suggested that you have a lot of experience in or would like to share, please definitely let us know. Just a reminder, in October, we will not be having our regular meeting because we will be focused on the annual meeting. We encourage you to take a look at Educause, and particularly if you, you know, join us for the community day, join us for the project management sessions. Reminder on remaining meetings, we'll have one in November, on November 17th at 2 o'clock. It's a Tuesday at 2 month. And then December will be another Wednesday at 1 month on December 16th. And the 2021 schedule will be coming soon. Don't forget to check out our new wiki site that Ed promoted, as well as our YouTube channel. We will be placing this recording up there soon. We thank you all for coming.
Thank you, Lisa. Thank you, everybody, for attending today. And thank you, Carol, especially as our special guest for leading it, and everybody for the great discussion. So we really appreciate it. Have a wonderful rest of your day. And as Lisa said, once the recording gets processed, we'll get it, and Ed will work his magic on our new YouTube channel and get it posted for everybody.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good day.